hello and welcome back to our grade 9 maths lesson. I am Mrs. Ray, your teacher. Okay, in our last lesson we looked at laws of indices, and in this lesson we are going to look at the application on the index rules. Okay, we'll look at how to simplify using the laws of indices. Okay, application of index rules. Okay, let's look at example number 1. I have w to the power of 3 times w to the power of 5 over w to the power of 4. Now, when I have w to the power of 3 times w to the power of 5 over w to the power of 4, I can use the law of multiplying index with the same base. So I have w 3 plus 5, since I am multiplying indices with the same base, over w to the power of 4. w 3 plus 5 is w to the power of 8 over w to the power of 4. Now, this is dividing indices with the same base, so I am going to subtract the powers. So I have w to the power of 8 minus 4, and my answer now is w to the power of 4. So, when I simplify w to the power of 3 times w to the power of 5 over w to the power of 4, that is now simplified to w to the power of 4. So my answer to that is equal to w to the power of 4. Now, let's look at the second example. Now, if I have 15x to the power of negative 3 y to the power of 2 over 3 x to the power of negative 4 y to the power of 8 all raised to the power of 2. Now, when we were looking at our order of operations, we usually start with the brackets first. So the numerator will be the same, which is 15 over x to the power of negative 3 times y to the power of 2 over, I'll have to simplify the brackets in the denominator. So I have 3 to the power of 2, okay, x to the power of negative 4 times 2 y to the power of 8 times 2. So, now I have 15x to the power of negative 3 y to the power of 2 over 3 to the power of 2 is 9, x to the power of negative 8, and y to the power of 16. Now, I can simplify this. 15 and 9, I can divide 15 and 9 by 3. Okay, 15 into 3 is 5, and 9 into 3 is 3 times x. We have the same base, so I have negative 3 minus negative 8. Okay, this negative 8 here. And y to the power of 2 minus 16, because they have the same base. So I am going to subtract the powers. So now I have 5 on 3 times x, okay? Negative 3, when we looked at directed numbers, when we are subtracting directed numbers, we add its opposite. So this will become plus plus. Negative 3 plus 8 will be positive 5 times y. 2 minus 16 will be negative 14. So now I have 5 on 3 times x to the power of 5, y to the power of negative 14. When I am left with an answer which is raised to a negative power, I must always change that to a positive power. How do we change that? We refer to our law on negative index to change y to the power of negative 14 to a positive index. So this is what I'm going to do. We bring this to this side here. Okay, now I have 5 over 3 times x to the power of 5 times y to the power of negative 14 is the same as 1 over y to the power of positive 14. That is when we apply the law of index number 3. So when I simplify it, that will be equal to 5 times x to the power of 5 times 1 is 5x to the power of 5 over 3 times y to the power of 14 is 3y to the power of 14. So that is my final answer for 15, x to the power of negative 3, y to the power of 2 over 3x to the power of negative 4, y to the power of 8, all raised to the power of 2. When we simplify that, it gives us this answer here, 5x to the power of 2 over 3y to the power of 14. Okay. Let's look at one last example on fractional index. Now, I have a question here. I am going to write this in set form, and we are going to see how we can write that as a simplest answer in index form. Okay, so if I have fifth root of a to the power of 4. Now, how do we write that in fractional index form? Okay, we know that the nth root always tells us the numerator, and the power always the denominator, and the power always gives us the numerator of the fraction. So a will be the base. So in this, if you write it in fractional index form, that's a to the power of 4 over 5. Now, that brings us to the end of our lesson on indices, and also the end of our term 1 lessons. Okay, in which we have learned number and operations, approximation and significant figures, directed numbers, and indices. Hope you have learned a lot from what we have learned in term 1. Now, in term 2, we will be looking at statistics and probability and many more, and it's going to be very interesting. So be ready to be with Mrs. Rea, your grade 9 maths teacher. Thank you.